The whole point of technology is to make our lives easier. However, to do that, you need to know how to make computers work for you. Learning to code is a superpower that not many people have. In this video, I'm covering one of the Python scripts that I have running on my computer that saves me time every single month. On this channel, I'm teaching the skills to help people grow as software developers. If you like this video, don't forget to subscribe. If you already know another language that's not Python, you might be wondering, do I have to use Python to do this? You can use any language, you don't have to use Python, but there's a few reasons why I choose to use Python. One, it doesn't require compiling, so you can use it on multiple operating systems without having to do anything. Two, there's loads of libraries for Python, so you can do pretty much anything with it. And three, it has great support for the file system, which means it's perfect for automating things in your life. So the Python script I'm going to go through is the one that I use that takes the photos from my Dropbox camera uploads folder and moves them into a new photos folder sorted by year and month. This is something I used to do manually every month to make sure my photos were organized. But now I have this script that runs automatically in the background, so I don't need to do anything. Now I want to walk through my thinking process when building this script so you get an idea of what you need to think about when you're writing your own scripts. So let's get stuck in. So the first thing we're going to do is get a list of the files that are in our folder. And then with the files we have, we need to check whether their files are either photos or videos, as that's all we really care about that we want to put in our photos folder. If they're not, we're just going to ignore them. But if they are, then we need to see what can we use to be able to sort them by year and month. Now, Dropbox tends to rename the files that it's putting into that folder with the date and time that they were added. So what we're going to do is we're going to use that file name, if it has a date in it, to then extract what the year and month is. Now, if it doesn't have a date on it, then we need to see when that file was created. And then we can use the created date of the file to work out the year and month. Now, in some cases, you can use things like the EXIF data, especially if it's a photo, to work out when it was actually taken. However, this requires a few extra packages in Python. It's something I've done before, but it's a bit of a mess to try and set up on Mac, so I'm glossing over it for now. So in both cases, whether it be by the file name or whether it be by the date it was created, we're going to have a year and month. From there, we want to be able to create our photos folder, which is where we're going to copy it to. Now we need to see, does that exist? Is there already a folder with that year and that month? If there isn't, then we need to create that folder. If there is, we can just carry on using the one that's there. Next, we need to see, is the file that we want to copy across, is there already one in the target folder with the same name? If there's not, great, we can just move the file to the new folder. If there is, then we need to do a few checks to see whether it's actually the same file. Now, you could do things like taking a hash of the file to see if it's the same. So for me, I'm just going to look at the size of the file. If it's got the same name and it's exactly the same size, then chances are it's the same photo. But you might want to do a few other checks just in case. Here, if it is the same file, it's the same name, it's the same size, then we're just going to delete the original file in the source folder. If it's not the same size file, then its chances are it's a different photo with the same name, in which case we're just going to error. So that's our script, that's what it's going to do. And we're now going to have a look and see how you create that in Python. So this is what our Python script is going to do. We've got our camera uploads folder that's got a few different photos in it from different points of the year. Some have got dates in, some haven't. And it's going to transfer them across and put them into the right folders. Let's have a look at what we do. So if we run this script, there we go, see it's quite quick and it's moved everything across. So we now have in 2022, we've now got different months with the October one that's got my profile pic in it, and then the photos are in each of the different folders. Now I've got this sort of naming strategy where I've got the number of the month before the name of the month, just so when you sort the folders by alphabetical order, they actually appear in the right order. Okay, so let's have a go at writing this Python script. First things first, we need to know which folders we're going to be looking at. So to do this, I'm just going to create a couple of variables in our code. You could do this as parameters to the script, but considering it's always going to be using the same folders, it doesn't really matter. So here we're going to include a source and a target. So the source being our camera uploads folder and the target being our photos folder. So next we need to look at the files that are sitting in that folder. So to do that, we're going to create a new variable called files. And we're going to use os.list directory. And then we'll look at this source directory. You can see here that OS is undefined. So what we need to do is import it at the top of our code to be able to use it. We'll just type import OS. So next we need to loop through those files. So to do that, we're going to use a for loop. So we do for file in files. And then let's just print what we have here to see what the files are coming out for that. So it's a great thing just to use print statements just to see what's happening. Let's make sure we save it. And I'm going to type Python. So I've got Python 3 on my machine, but you might have just Python on yours. So let's see what that does. Here we go. So it gives us all the files. So we've got those images we've got, but we've also got a few other things such as the icons. These are like hidden files, but they still appear in there. So next we need to work out whether this is going to be a photo or not. So of course there's different file formats for photos. Some of them are JPEG, some are PNG, and we also want the videos as well. So it might be .mov or MP4. There's lots of different formats. So to do that first, we need to create a list of all of the extensions that we care about. So to do this, we're going to create an array that contains each of those extensions. So we're going to just create this at the top. I'm just going to copy and paste. So here we are. So here we can allow JPEG, PNG, JPEG, a different name, MOV, and MP4 as well. So to check the extension on each of these files, we can do if, so we do file.lower. This is going to lower the file name so that we can be sure that we're going to get a match on that file extension. And then we're going to do ends with. And here we can then either basically just put in a string, but we're going to use a tuple, depending how you pronounce it. And we're just going to use extensions here, which is our array that we had earlier. Going on to the next line, we can then do print again with file, and we should, all being well, only get the pictures this time. There we go, they all end in JPEG, so that's good. So the next thing we need to do is to get the date that's on the file. So either that's from the file name or we can use the created date that's sitting on the file. Now what I'm going to do is create a separate function for this and just call it define get date. And so in here we're going to take both the folder that we're passing in as well as the file that we're looking at. So again, we can just do print here just to replace what we had before, just so we have something in there. And then here we can call get date. And we're going to put in source and file. To be able to get the date out of these files, we want the year and month. So to do that, we're going to use regex. Now regex can be a bit scary at first, but it's quite simple. I'm going to literally just copy and paste what I had earlier, just so you can see, and I'll explain through what each of it does. So we need to come up with a pattern for these files to be able to detect that it's actually got this format of date in there. So here we're going to have our date pattern. So the dot star basically means it matches any character. So it might be that we have a date in the picture, but it's actually somewhere else in the file name. Next, we know that it's going to start with 20. I haven't got any pictures from the 1980s or 1990s in there, so it's all going to be starting from 20. And then the /d on here just means any number between 0 and 9. So that's going to match any year after the year 2000. So next we have a hyphen. The hyphen here is followed by a question mark. Question mark means 0 or 1. So it's possible to match the same thing. If neither of these hyphens are there, it will still match. And then we have our month, which is obviously going to start either with a 0 or a 1 because there's only 12 months in the year. And then we've got our /d, which matches everything from 0 to 9. Next, we've got another optional hyphen followed by the day. It's going to start either with 0, 1, 2, or 3. And then obviously we've got between 0 and 9 for the other number. And then finally, we've got a dot star at the end, which just means match anything else. So it doesn't matter if it's got the time there, we're just going to ignore it. Now what you see is each of these have got brackets. So we've got a bracket here and another one here and another one here. So this matches the year, the month, and the day. And this basically gives us individual groups when we're trying to do a pattern match on that file name that we can then pull out of the regex. So in our function, we're going to have a match object. And then we're going to use regex to match what we have in our file name with the one that we've got in our date pattern. So we do date pattern, so we match the file name, and then we're going to add in file. Now again, RE is unknown because we need to import regex. So we're just going to do import RE at the top. So next we need to pull out the year and the month from the date if it matches. So if we do if match object, which will tell us if there's a match, and then we can just do year equals match obj dot group 1, and we do month equals match obj dot group 2. And if at this point we then decide to do print, we can do print year, and if we run that, then we're going to get the year and the month of each of those photos. Now there's a chance that the date isn't in the file name. As you can see here, we've got profile, it doesn't have a date, and obviously didn't give us the date there. So we need to add an else, and we need to find a way of getting it from the date. So for this, we need another function for working out what the date is going to be for the file. So for this next bit of code, I didn't write it myself. I Googled it and looked at it up on Stack Overflow. Even as a senior developer, we still need to do that. So this bit of code, it finds the created date, but the reason it gets a bit complicated is because the created date is going to change depending on what platform you're on. If you're on Windows, then you can use the created date, but if you're not on Windows, you might need to use like the modified date. So this is a bit of code that I found from somewhere else. So there's a few things we need to import here. So we need to import platform and we need to import date time. So if we do that at the top, so we import platform and import date time, we can then use this bit of code. So what this does is first it checks the platform to see whether we're on Windows. If we are, we can use getCtime. Now this will give us the created date, but the reason we can't use this on Mac or on Linux is because this will actually give us the modified date. If we are on Mac and Windows, we can get the timestamp of the birth time, which is obviously the created date, from this os.stat. But this again only works on Mac. On Linux, it doesn't always work, in which case we need to use the time that it was last modified, which obviously is less accurate, but that's why it's the last thing that we do. So you might find that you get an attribute error on Linux because this just doesn't exist on Linux. And then lastly, we're going to do a bit of formatting on that timestamp to turn it into the format we want so it matches the same that we get on the Dropbox uploads. So here we've got year, month, day, and then obviously hour, minutes, and seconds. So next we need to basically call this method in here. So we're going to do date created, and we're going to call our new method, which was called creation date. And here we basically have to pass in the whole path of the file. So instead of just having the file name, we need to include folder here as well. Plus we need to include a / and the name of the file. And then we need to do the same thing we had up here. So where we were taking the date from the file name, this time we're taking the date from the created date, but we still need that year and month. So if we copy this line, paste it down here, and we need to change that file to date created. And then we can do the same thing and take the year and month out of there as well. Now, if we print those, save that and run it, we should get all of the dates there. So you can see here, we've got this extra one here, which is the date of that profile picture. Okay, so now we know that this bit works, we can take out these print statements and we're going to add in a return statement. So this function actually returns the year and month. Now to do this, there's a number of ways we could create an object, but the easiest way is just to create a dictionary. So if we do return, and then we're going to create a dictionary with year here and month. So that will give us our year and month from each of those files. And then to check this works, we can just add in a print statement and we can do a date and put in year, and then we'll add another one to print out the month. And this should give us a similar output to the one we just had. There we go. Okay, so let's write this to year and month so we have it as a variable. So we'll add month in here. There we go. So one thing I didn't add was up here, we obviously have a check here to see whether it matches, but we didn't check to see whether the date created matches. Now it's unlikely that a file wouldn't have a created date of any kind, but it's worth doing a check anyway. So if we do match obj again here and just do a check to see, and we can just put this inside our if statement. And then we can add in another else. So there isn't much we can do here. So all we can do is really return 0. So I'll return this as a string, as the other ones are going to be returned as strings. And then we can add a print statement to say unable to get date. And then we can include a name, the file that had the issue. Okay, so next, now that we've got the year and month, we then need to see about creating that folder, see whether it exists, and if it doesn't, we need to create it. So first we're going to check to see whether we've got zeros at all, just so we don't continue, or at least we don't do anything with that file that comes up. So we'll do just quick here, year equals 0 or month equals 0. And then we just do continue. There's no need to print anything because we said already up here that we were unable to get the date. So assuming we've got a date, we can ensure that year and month have got something in it that's valid. We need to then get the folder and create it. So as I showed earlier, to be able to have all of the folders in an alphabetical order and have them in the correct order of the months, we need to create a folder name with the month number and the month name. Now to do that, we're going to use another function. So I'm going to copy and paste this from one I did earlier. So we have a function here, just sort out the indentation. The thing with Python is, at least until I think version 3.10, Python didn't have any switch statements. So we had to basically create an else if statement like this to be able to do what we wanted to do. You could probably make this a bit shorter with a few different date libraries that are in Python, but this is the simplest way of doing it. So here, this will give us each the folder with the month number, so they're in alphabetical order when we sort them, and obviously the month name. So we go back down to our code. So here we're going to get our folder name by putting in year and month. So if we do year, month, and then we're going to print this folder and see what it gives us. And it should, all going well, it should print out the year and month. Here we go. So that's the folder structure we're going to have. So we're going to have 2022 with the August, and then September, June, and October. So next we need our target folder. So we've got our target at the top here, which is Dropbox Photos. This is where we're going to put in our new folder, and we need to check first to see whether it exists. So if we do target folder, and we're going to do target plus add in our slash for our folder name, and then so again, we can use a Python library to see whether this folder exists. So if it doesn't exist, so we can do not, then we want to create it. If it does exist, we don't need to actually do anything. So we can do here, we can do os.path.exists and then look up the target folder. Which means if it doesn't exist, we need to create it. Again, we can use os as well to do this. So there's one called make dir, you can see here. So make the directory, and we can just do target folder. So that's going to create our folder if it doesn't already exist, ready for our photos to go in. Okay, so next we need to check to see whether the file that we want to move across already exists. Again, we can use the same thing. So we can do if not os.path.exists. So here we need to actually, instead of using our target folder, we need to create a target file. So if I do that up above here, we can do target file. This is going to be obviously target folder plus our separator and then plus our file. And then we can check whether it exists or not. And if it doesn't exist, it means we're ready to move it. So there is another utility, that we can use here. So we can import the shutil library that allows us to move files quite easily. So if we do move, we then basically want to move it from our source file, move to our target file. So here we need our source file, which is going to be source plus slash plus file. Okay, so that's going to be moving them if they don't already exist. Of course, we also need to check whether they do exist. And if they do exist, we want to check the size of the file as well and see whether it matches the size of the file that's already there. So I don't bore you with how we do this, I'm going to copy and paste what I had earlier, Blue Peter style, and we'll put this in here so you can see what it does. Here we have the else. We need to check whether it already exists. Let's just sort out. So it's very important with Python that all of the spacing is correct, or the indentation, otherwise it's just not going to work. So if you ever copy and paste anything from anywhere else, you need to make sure that the indentation is correct. If it already exists, and it's the same size, then we can delete it. So here we're using, again, the stats on the file, so the st size, which gives us the size of the file, both the source file that we specified here and the target file. If it's a duplicate file, we can delete it and print a little message, and then we can basically remove the source file. The last thing is if the file already exists, but it's a different size. In this case, we're just going to print a message. If we really wanted to, we could rename the file to allow us to move it, but there's going to be such a rare occurrence, there's not really any point in doing that. So finally, if we run our script, we should find that it moves all our files. There we go. And then if we go back to our photos folder, we can now see that it's back to having everything in the correct order. Now with our script all written and working, the last thing we need to do is have it run automatically. Now, there's various ways you can do it. If you're on Windows, you want to use Task Scheduler, but if you're on Linux or Mac, you can use cron. So cron is built in on a system. All you have to do is do cron tab -e. So this 0 basically says it's going to run every hour on the 0th minute. If you want to create your own ones, there's a great website called crontab.guru, and I'll put a website down below. Here you can test out all the different ways and see how many they run. So here you can see I've got 0 and minutes, and this is going to run at minute 0, so every single hour. And then we have Python 3 and then the path to our file. And that's all there is to it. And that will run every hour without me needing to do it, moving all my photos across to the folder. If you want to learn a bit more about how to automate stuff in Python, there's a great book by Al Stuggart called How to Automate the Boring Stuff in Python, and I'll put a link in the description below for you to try out. Now, when you're writing your script, don't forget to use Git. If you want to learn a bit more about Git and the different branching strategies, then you might want to check out this video. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to subscribe.